All right, guys. This is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee on the 18th of April. It's a Saturday, Shabbat. It's 8:50 in the morning. And it's a nice morning here in Israel, the soon-to-be Holy Land. It's 75 degrees already. We're going to hit 91 today. And 60 is the low tonight, and the high 85 tomorrow. Then we go to 83, then we go to 94 and 95. So I got to get my air conditioning working, make sure it's up to snuff. Got to turn it on. Haven't turned it on in a long time. So we got a very unusual broadcast for me today, and it's really you should find it troubling. I didn't do a super deep dive, but I did a dive into this. It appears that Yemen, the Houthis, are using Chinese weapons. Now, I'm not going to be able to give this to you. Of course, the Muslim media is saying that they hit I believe it was the Vincent aircraft carrier yesterday. They attacked both aircraft carriers. And I know that they did hit one of the American aircraft carriers several months ago because it went and docked in Saudi Arabia for a few days. And that was to make repairs. I'm quite sure they did get a hit. Now, they've been saying they're getting hits on the aircraft carriers, not sinking them. That's probably because the missiles they're using are hypersonic and don't have a very big warhead. And an aircraft carrier is a 100,000-ton boat. Not 100,000 pounds, 100,000 tons. So there are cruise ships that are more than twice the weight of that. But it's 900, 1,000 feet or so. It's a huge boat. It doesn't have 16 or 18 decks. Now some have 23 decks in cruise ships above the main deck. They have 23 levels. Most are about somewhere between 14 and 16 levels over the main deck, which they usually call the Lido deck. And that creates a lot of weight, and it also creates a hazard for wind. What the cruise ship guys are really afraid of is strong storm. The waves aren't going to do much. I mean, if you had a 180-foot wave, yeah. But I mean, they get hit with rogue waves rather routinely. I mean, not every cruise, but it happens a few times a year. And the wave could come up 60, 70 feet, but it breaks some of the glass. They have railings around the decks, and they have glass to stop the wind and spray from the water or whatever. And the waves break the glass, which they replace. But that's about all that happens, okay? I was on a cruise with my wife years ago, and a rogue wave hit, and it washed the bathing suits off some people because it came over the deck, But nobody got hurt, Okay, so they're not worried about waves, they're worried about wind. So if you get a strong wind hitting the ship broadside, and it has that huge tower of decks on the cruise ship, it could push it over too far. If it goes more than 45 degrees over, it goes to its side, and then you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of people hurt, not killed probably. But then the ship will start taking water in the cabins, and then you got to get off the ship, and it's a nightmare. So that's what they're afraid of, okay? Now, aircraft carriers don't have that kind of problem. The wind could hit the aircraft carrier all day long, okay? And it ain't going to blow it over. It's got these towers in one place where they control the ship and the aircraft landing and the weapons and the intelligence and everything like that. But that's nowhere near broad enough or high enough to cause the wind to be able to do anything to the ship. So the ship is rather streamlined and rather um, sturdy, and it's got a kind of a pointed hull. Um, it's more streamlined than a cruise ship, which is designed to float around in the Mediterranean or the Caribbean or something, you know. But these aircraft carriers are designed to go through rough water, and they do a good job of it. So anyway, they're saying that they've hit the aircraft carrier a few times, different ones in the past, and it's rumored that they have photos and videos that have been verified. I would feel rather certain in saying they did hit an aircraft carrier some months ago when Biden was president once, and it had to go for repairs. And that's one of the now. I'm going to do a deep dive into this and talk to you about the Chinese weapons. What weapon could likely be helping the Houthis guide the missiles? And it's a drone. A Chinese drone is what I think they're using. And I'll go through all this stuff with you. But don't just say, oh, America's great, great, because I'm going to show you the actions that Trump is taking and line it up with this Chinese weapons being given to Yemen and, of course, Iran. Okay? And you'll see it's a great explanation for what Trump's weird behavior is. I mean, the Chinese, again, are saying, we're not going to get rid of our nuke facilities. We're not going to get monitored. We're not going to get rid of our uranium stockpiles. We're not. And Trump's still negotiating with them. See, something's wrong with this picture, isn't it? Of course it is. Yet we hear Trump say, he said this, I think Ukraine and Russia are somewhat serious about a peace deal / ceasefire, and I'll keep trying to bring one to pass, but if I think they're not serious, I'm out of there. What Trump is saying is he's washing his, if he can't bring about a peace deal ceasefire quickly with Ukraine and Russia, he's done with the war in Ukraine and Russia, which means he ain't giving any more weapons or support to Ukraine, which means him and NATO are going to be in a very bad way. Okay? And he's already taking troops and military equipment out of the European area. No, he's not going to leave the UK in the lurch, that I can tell you. France took down a missile in the Middle East yesterday that flew over one of their ships. So they probably really do have an aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean near the Sea of Oman or in the Sea of Oman. Okay, and I heard India had one there too, but I can't get super solid verification of that. But there's a lot of stuff that you don't hear in the mainstream media and the survivalist and the prepper channels that are in Canada and America. They don't pick it up, okay? They don't understand Bible prophecy, and they have a common thread about them. They make a tremendous amount of money selling you survival and prepper equipment, food, dry powdered food in a plastic tin. They never tell you just go buy all metal canned foods in a supermarket, and it's probably going to last as long as the survival food. And why do you want to eat dehydrated food anyway? Do you think it's got all the nutritional value in it? Do you? I don't know. I'd rather go with canned food. And it's cheap. And the stuff's going to last. I mean, how many years do you need it to last? 25 years? If it would last 3 or 4 years, you're fine, but it's going to last a lot longer than that. There's lots of videos of people opening up various kinds of canned foods that go back decades, even 100 years. Now, I wouldn't go that far, but I think safely you'd have absolutely no trouble at 5 to 10 years with canned food. Okay. And when it starts aging, you eat it and replace it with new canned food. I mean, come on. What do you need this survival stuff for? Makes no sense. You know, it just it doesn't add up, you know. But they make money on that. They make money on selling you other pieces of equipment, hard goods, clothing. You know, they talk about guns and bullets and this and that and bug out bags and holsters and knives and helmets and whatever, right? And they make money on that. They're influencers. So they're going to beat the drum on nuclear attacks. We got to be ready. We got to get prepared. Let's listen to EAM messages. You know, and the people play into it and they love these guys. They don't understand if it's a substantial channel, you better believe they're S-bots. And they just love these people, throw money at them, buy stuff they sell and get a commission on it and all this other stuff, you know. So these guys do pick up good news, but not all of it. Okay? They don't. And they don't know really what's going on in the Middle East at all. A lot of my stuff is derived from Arab Muslim media, and you've got to throw a lot of it away because a lot of it is garbage. Like they call Israel a genocidal state. Who started the war with Hamas? Israel or Hamas? Who killed men, women, and children and raped them in front of their families and burned them alive? Hamas. Who took them captive as hostages in Gaza and is keeping them, what are we on, 19 months now? And is still keeping them and won't let them go. And many of them have died in captivity. Is that genocidal or is Israel genocidal? And they keep insisting that, given a chance, they're going to repeat the October 7th massacre. Yet they call us genocidal. Is there a loss of logic here? Of course. Victims don't keep hostages and refuse to return them. The only thing they got going for themselves, Hamas in Gaza, is the hostages. That's it. And they won't let go unless they get Israel to leave Gaza, and they want international guarantees from other countries that Israel won't resume the war. Going back into Gaza would be resuming the war. So they want other countries to step in there with military observing force and guarantee that Israel won't return the war. And if they do, then these countries would probably be required to take some action. So far, nobody has volunteered to do that. That's the only condition that they have for returning the hostages. They started the war. They're trying to make believe they're winning it. And they're playing the hostage card mightily. And they call us genocidal. So when you go through the Arab media, you got to have a pretty good idea of how the Middle East works, how these Muslim terrorists operate, what their motives are, what they're trying to do. And I wouldn't call them masters at propaganda, but they're definitely well schooled. Okay? And then we'll talk about, will Israel attack Iran? And what's Trump doing? What is Trump up to with sanctions on China? And we'll get into all of that. And a lot of you are not going to like this because you think America is the top dog in the world, or the top country, I should say. But you got to understand, when you look at Trump's actions, like I'll lay it out for you today, you're going to realize that this is far from the truth. Okay. So, and this will be very unsettling for you people, not those of you that understand real Bible prophecy, that we're not headed into Ezekiel 38 and 39. We're headed into Zechariah 12, and we're well into it already. And that's sadly foreign to a lot of the churchgoers because they won't teach you that. And they won't teach you America's the daughter of Babylon. And that's sad too. Okay, I'm going to go into the live stream now, make sure we got a live stream. I'm going to try to see if we got any moderators in yet. I hope we do. Waiting for some load. Okay, we got good sound and picture. Yeah, I've got at least one moderator. Yes, my wife cans food in glass jars. We got a ton of it. It lasts a very long time. You could also get those vacuum sealed bags. They're nowhere near as good as canning, but they'll last you a while. You could dehydrate meat, in other words, make meat jerky and seal it in vacuum bags. I guess you'd probably get at least a year and a half out of that. Yeah, they don't practice what they preach. We know that. Okay, I'm going to put some posts up now real quick, and then we'll get going. This will just take seconds more than anything, and it gives people a chance to still come in. Okay, now I'll put my email address up if anybody wants to send in by email a prayer request or a toss request. You can do it that way more privately, or you can put it up in the chat. I do check the chat during the broadcast. To make somebody a moderator, I got to really know who they are, okay? Since I started using moderators, we get much fewer nasty people in here. If anybody wants to be a moderator, and I know who you are, write me an email. My email address is now in the chat. It's israelgiving with the number 7 at gmail.com. And it's also at the bottom of the description box of the video. Okay, so now I'm going to do some praise, being an Old Testament, New Testament, Bible-believing site, and we'll get going. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Guys, I'm going to come back in a few seconds. I got to get rid of the sweatshirt. It's too warm. I don't really have a place to hang it up here. See, these prepper channels and survivalist channels and these, which are to a great extent news channels too, are not going to tell you the truth about America and what's going on, because if they did, they'd lose their subscribers. Instead, they prefer to keep you in fear by scaring you about nuclear wars and all this stuff. So you keep buying survival equipment and stuff like that. Other people seem to think that by listening to them and watching them, they know what's going on and they've got a great edge in the world. They don't know what's going on because they don't understand Bible prophecy. They just know what the nations want them to think is going on, not what really is going to happen, not what God is doing. So Trump, now here's a piece of news that you weren't told. The meeting today, the second negotiation session with Iran, which is the theater of the absurd, you all probably know that by now, is not in Oman. I thought it was going to be again in Oman. What happened is Oman, I think since the last meeting, told America that you cannot dock your warships in Oman, you cannot refuel here, you cannot take on goods, you cannot service your ships. We want nothing to do with any of that. That's when Trump moved it to Italy, and it's actually taking place in Rome today. Okay, Iran did agree to go to Rome. They'll play along, why not? I mean, they played with Obama and he sent $1 billion cash in an airplane to him once, right? So Iran's demands are also like pre-negotiation. They want sanction relief. They want to have access to the money that America froze in banks, billions and billions of dollars of their money. They want it released, and they want the pressure off China buying Iranian oil, and they basically are telling America, you basically leave us alone. But then what are they giving America for this? They turn around and say, we're not dismantling our nuclear facilities. We're not giving up the uranium we already made. And we're not cutting back our centrifuges. And we're not going to let you tell us how much we can make. So why is America negotiating? Well, let's throw a few different theories out there. One is Trump the author of The Art of the Deal, is thinking he could overcome them somehow, probably using sanctions. Trump is the president of sanctions and tariffs. That's him, okay? I don't think it'll work at all. It doesn't have much chance. Iran, Russia, China, and there's about a total of 29 or 28 countries in BRICS. And they're setting up their payment system, and they have every intention of trading oil and many other goods with each other without using the US dollar or the euro, collapsing the economies. And that's how they want to bring America down. Okay? And that's a big reason why Trump is in the Middle East with Iran. And that's another big reason why America was giving weapons to Ukraine to attack Russia. The two big players in BRICS to sell oil off the US dollar without the SWIFT system is Iran and Russia. Now, the UAE is in there, but they're not as big a player as Iran and Russia. Saudi Arabia, up until today, has not joined BRICS, and I have no idea if they will or they will not join BRICS. The meeting with Saudi Arabia, actually the Prince, Salman, whatever the goof's name is, I think the king is his father, who's still alive, who wrote a letter to the Iranian guy that the son delivered. And he went there and met with he's the defense minister of Saudi Arabia, I guess, by official title. He basically runs the country, though, as far as I know. And he went to meet the foreign minister of Iran. And he also had a brief audience with the supreme leader of Iran. Now, that has a lot of different ramifications. Of course, we have to consider that Saudi Arabia doesn't trust America. And they're afraid the Houthis, who's a puppet or a satellite or a proxy of Iran, will be attacking them with their missiles, which the attack would probably work effectively and knock out their oil refineries and whatever else they want to knock out. That's not to say that Saudi, with the help of American anti-missile systems, won't take some missiles down, but they won't prevail. So they might have just went to see Iran as a sham and drag out negotiations hoping for America to destroy Iran. So they might not be real. Now, the Iranians would definitely consider that, okay? So maybe they're turning their back on America, but I'm not thinking that. Why? Because Trump has a lot of soldiers, I would say 5,000 in Saudi Arabia. There's 58,000 soldiers spread amongst the Middle East locations, okay, from America. And he's brought a lot of weapons in there to protect Saudi Arabia and so forth, and he's not taking them out. He's not removing them. If the Saudis were going to hook up with Iran, Trump would sit there and say, well, they stabbed us in the back. And what the heck do I need to keep weapons and missiles there and other things and military, and spend a fortune every month on the military if they're against us? The heck with them and pull out. Saudi would never stop them from pulling out. Well, one reason is then the Saudis would probably join BRICS. But as far as I know, some months back, the Saudis stopped trading oil in US dollar and euro. And I don't know if they've ever started up again doing it in US dollar, but I don't think they did. So I think Trump is trying to win them back to being a compliant ally of the United States and stay out of international politics and just pump oil and buy gold-plated Rolls Royces and rubies and sapphires and just leave everybody alone. Have your harem, your palaces, your yachts, your jets, and just leave us alone. Pump that oil. And that's where I think Trump wants Saudi Arabia. Okay, Saudi Arabia could do nothing. They hire foreigners to run their medical system and their hospitals for the wealthy. The regular people are probably using, regular Saudi trained doctors or something like that, but they have elite clinics and hospitals where they pay lavishly top notch doctors. And then they bring in mercenaries to work with their military and train them. And they bring in foreign workers to work in their oil fields and smart people to build the refineries and the oil wells and run them. And they just run around eating caviar and, sitting in their palaces, impressing everybody with their wealth. And they're constantly trying to hold broken eggs in their hands to keep the Shiites at bay from taking them over. The Shiites, which is like Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, Yemen, the Houthis, and Iraq, they don't respect kings and emirs and princes and royal families and dictators. They think the wealth of the country should be distributed amongst the people. Okay? And the King of Jordan, the royal family in Saudi Arabia, the royal family in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman is guilty of this too, but they seem to be in the Iranian court. They steal the wealth for the royal family, and the people live pretty, poorly. Okay. Now they have middle classes, which are merchants, accountants, pharmacists, doctors, nurses. They have that. And they don't like this dictator king system. They want everybody to be united in a caliphate, a big Islamic state in the Middle East, and Iran's trying to be the one to run it. And Turkey is their competitor. So, of course, America is backing Turkey and Syria. They think that's okay. Netanyahu was bellyaching about it, but he seems to have shut up. I think Trump told him this is the reality. Now, Americans are already pulling troops out of the American bases in Syria. Hundreds have already left. They're bringing the bases down already. I mean, steady drip of removing soldiers from the bases. Now, my opinion is they feel they can't adequately defend the bases from attacks from Iran, Iraq, and Yemen, which would be the ones to do the attacking. Okay, and China and Russia may join in, and we're going to deal with that in a few moments. Okay, so by Trump's actions, something's wrong. Trump is not a stupid individual. Trump's got a good brain, and Trump is still continuing to go to the negotiations with Iran, saying all these crazy things, and Trump is saying all these crazy things. Like, I really hope for the sake of Iran that we make a deal. And what kind of deal can you possibly make with Iran where they don't want anything limited in their nuclear ambitions and their programs. And they don't even want to talk about that, and they won't even talk about their missile programs. So is Trump really going to make some sort of stupid deal with Iran like, Obama did? Well, it looks that way, doesn't it? Is Trump setting them up? Well, we'll go through some scenarios. Maybe Trump is setting them up. So about a week ago, we heard, oh, no, America doesn't want you, Netanyahu, to attack Iran right now. Don't attack Iran right now. And Netanyahu is saying he's scared because he thinks Trump will enter into some stupid nuclear treaty or deal with Iran that is meaningless. And Trump may very well do that as his alibi to get out of the Middle East. And also he spent, I don't think 100 billion, but he probably spent $1 billion or $2 billion or maybe $3 billion moving all this aircraft, warships, and military equipment into the Middle East. There's probably been over 300 flights of heavy cargo planes to the Middle East. We just got another 3 cargo planes into the Nevatim base south of Israel yesterday, I think, or the day before. I think it was yesterday, bringing a total of 10 in the last handful of days. 4 or 5 days, 10 cargo ships into Israel. We don't know what was on those ships. Obviously, Netanyahu knows, and the military knows, and America knows, but nobody's telling Israel. And I don't think it was corn and artichokes, I'm unsure what it was, but it would be military related, rest assured. And I don't know what weapons came in. We have already gotten a lot of bombs from America. It's my tomato juice, and I'm spicing it up with some sauce and some cayenne, which I like to do. So where'd my cayenne go? Here it is. There's the old standby Tabasco. I don't really know if this is cayenne, but it does taste okay. So Trump's acting like a screwball. Nobody could say he's not. And he might have some master plan, but I think that there is no master plan. I think the problem is the Chinese weapons. 3 days ago, there was a press statement that the Pentagon said that China could destroy the American fleet in 20 minutes. I found it in Google. And the problem is the Chinese missiles. China has a missile that's hypersonic, and it can be used as an anti-ship missile or anti-aircraft. They have variances, of course, differences. These things are supposed to travel at Mach 4.7. That's over 3,000 miles an hour. Probably coming in around 4,000 miles an hour, something like that. Well, let me think for a minute. Mach 2 is 1,500. No, it comes in at about 2,700 miles an hour. And that's about double the speed of a stealth F-35 or F-22 or B-1 or B-2 bomber. Now, China has a drone, and this is a stealthy drone that can do a number of things. Okay? And it is supposed to be able to spot stealth jets like F-35s at 1,240 or 1,250 miles distance. This drone is not readily detectable. It's stealthy. And it allegedly, see, just knowing that there's an American stealth jet a long distance off doesn't mean a lot. The idea is, can it get a precision lock on it and direct a missile at it? This has never been proven. In other words, it's not been tried in combat against American or Israeli jets. Just detecting it doesn't mean a lot. You got to get a precise location, track it, get a lock on it, and launch a missile. That's capable of hitting it. While it picks the planes up at great distance, the plane's got to be quite close to get to it. They have taken an S-400 system from Russia and incorporated elements of the Iron Dome, the THAAD system, and the Patriot system into it, along with the Russian S-400. This is their anti-aircraft system. And they've been incorporating the use of microwaves in these systems. No other country uses microwaves. If you think this is troubling to the Americans, you're not using the right word. It's horribly distressing to the Americans. Do the Iranians make television sets? Do they make ovens? Do they make wristwatches? Do they make cars? Do they make airplanes that you would want to fly on? Then no. Does China make cars? Yes. Does China make motorcycles? Yeah, good ones too. And I'm sure some of their cars are good, and trucks. Okay. Do they make watches? I believe they do. They make good clones of Rolexes. They're not as good as a Rolex, but they make good ones. Illegal. You know, the scandal going around with Chanel and Louis Vuitton and the other, Dior, the very expensive Gucci. They make a lot of items. They're focusing heavy on handbags, but it also goes into many items. It's been revealed they've been made in China all along, the majority of them. And people are taking, they're selling a purse for $38,000 that costs $1,400 to make, counting the labor. Still can't track down a reliable source to buy this stuff. Here's one of the problems with this. The people in China are making a number of videos. They're trying to discredit these companies. And have they discredited these companies? Yes. Purses go up to $300,000, I understand now, which is stupid. I mean, it's moronic, They use rare animal skins like red crocodile and all kinds of crazy things. They line it with special lambskin. They use expensive threads. They gold plate the metal pieces and all kinds of things, right? But it ain't worth no $300,000. Will the rich people stop buying these goods? I don't know. The Chinese goods don't have the logo or the name. They don't say Gucci, they don't say Louis Vuitton and stuff like that. That gets put on by the actual company in their own factories in Europe. Now, Louis Vuitton sells very expensive purses and bags for, tens of thousands of dollars that are not even made out of leather. They're made out of a special canvas. And they have their name and their logos smacked all over these things. So I don't know how they could be making that in China. I do. They'd have to have permission from Louis Vuitton to put the name on there. That's all. Yeah, they can make it there. So this is, you see, there's a thing in manufacturing called quality control. When the manufacturer in China receives, lambskin leather from France, this one maker which sells it very expensive that they use to line the inside of the purse or the bag with, the Chinese company will inspect the leather. And if they see blemishes or flaws in the leather, they'll send it back. They won't make the purse with it. Okay? The same if they see things wrong with the metal pieces or the outer leather or whatever they're using, they'll send it back. Now, when they finish the purse or the bag, they send it to France or Italy, wherever the the parent company is, like Gucci or Dior, Chanel, whatever. And then they do the packaging and the final finishing. And they put the tags on it and all that, the warranty, all the junk, right? But they also have inspectors that inspect the purses and the bags coming from China to make sure that they're up to snuff, right? And if they find flaws, they send them back to China, or they maybe don't even bother sending them back. They just keep them and don't pay for them. And the purses are either destroyed or they sell them as seconds somewhere, or I don't know what they do with it. I have no idea. I don't have any idea. Now, when the idea is to see if the people will buy from these Chinese companies directly. So they're trying to give their names and information. It's near impossible to track these companies down. So it might be that these companies don't really exist. It's just a scam, which, shills making videos on TikTok and all the other places talking about this. And the facts they're giving are probably all true because they're highly specific how much they pay in these raw materials from specifically what company and what country is this company. And who they're selling the purses, who they're making the purses for. So they are not, the Chinese manufacturers are not reputable, people you could trust normally. I would say they're very, very untrustworthy. Extremely, more so than you might imagine. They're very, very untrustworthy. They'll do anything to fool you and cut costs. So the manufacturers, Dior, Chanel, and so forth, know this. So they probably visit the factories periodically. They might even have people that they employ that stay in the factory all day long, monitoring the production. I would think they do that. Or if they don't, when the goods come to them back in Italy or France, they inspect the daylights out of the product to make sure it's good. Okay, and China manufacturers probably turn away a lot of goods that didn't come out good, and they probably wind up being sold as clones or dupes someplace in the world. Who knows? They put the actual logo and then they put Louis Vuitton on it and sell it in a mall someplace in China, as the real thing. In other words, they sell it for, instead of 38,000, they say, "Oh, we'll sell it to you for 22,000," or they sell it for $1,500 as a clone. I don't have any idea. Probably as a clone. And so if people go and buy from them direct, this is what'll happen. Initially, they'll get the same raw materials in the product, but it won't have the name of the manufacturer on it. And that's going to hurt these people because now they're running around and they're not having a Birkin bag, or they're not having a Gucci or a Dior or something like that. Okay? They've got a run-of-the-mill bag, and it's, $1,500 or something like that. So why do they want to buy a purse for $1,500 that's just run-of-the-mill? You can get one for $200 or $300 run-of-the-mill, So it's like, it doesn't make sense. Plus, the Chinese manufacturers are going to cheat these people. They're going to not reject many of the purses for flaws, and the people may or may not return the purse based on the flaw, depending how bad it is. And the next thing is, it's not the same thing because it doesn't have the brand on it. Nobody's going to want it. So the whole concept of them trying to enter into this market to sell these dupes without the brand on it is a failure. It won't work. Nobody's going to trust them. How do you know they're using the same raw materials? Well, if you go over there and you walk into the shop and you inspect it and look at it and you know what a Chanel purse looks like and feels like, you still can be fooled, but maybe you would buy it then. But how many people are going to do that? 1 in 150 or something? They're not, and they're not even promoting them. When you see these videos, it's not visit our website, China dupe purses for less.com. You're not, they're not out there. I mean, I just think it's an attack based on Trump's tariffs. That's all it is. So they took down another drone the Houthis did yesterday, making it the 20th MQ-9 Reaper drone they took down. These are like $30 million drones or something like that, 13 or 30 million. They're very, very expensive drones, okay? This is the 20th they've taken down. America's not denying this. But now they're also saying they hit an aircraft carrier. I think the one they hit was the Carl Vinson. And America is trying to keep these aircraft carriers out of range. What I think is going on here is China is using these stealth drones to target American ships for the Houthis and possibly help direct the missiles and or drones to attack them and hit them. And because this is a stealth drone, the Americans can't shoot it down and detect it. And the Houthis know this, and Iran knows this, and they're keeping their mouths shut because China's saying, you keep your mouth shut, because they don't want the blowback of this. But I believe China's giving them very advanced weapons that could take out American warships. And I think they did hit the warship yesterday. They probably did not sink it. They probably didn't do a lot of damage, but they did some damage. And I've heard reports from them repeatedly for 6 weeks that they're hitting these American destroyers and aircraft carriers. Now, there's all different kinds of hits, Um, a hypersonic missile is probably not hauling a 3 or 4 or 500 pound warhead, maybe a 300, but it's not traveling with 1,000 pound or a big warhead because it's hypersonic. It got to go fast. That's my thoughts. So the warheads cause damage, but an aircraft carrier is a pretty tough cookie to take out. I would expect the hull is heavy steel. So if you try to drive it into the side of the hull, you're probably not going to get too far. You'll get an explosion. The crew members inside the ship in that right near that where the missile hit may get some concussive problems. They've flung down, hit the floor, hit furniture, hit the wall, something like that. Would they make a hole in the hull? Maybe, but probably not. And if they made a hole in the hull above the waterline, it wouldn't make a whole lot of difference to the aircraft carrier. They would repair it. They could make a repair like that with welding plates in. They could weld the plates in from the inside if they had to. It would have the effect of stopping water from getting in and so forth. Missiles are not the type of weapon that are going to hit below the waterline. That would be a torpedo. Missiles aren't designed to do that. They're going to break up when they hit the water. They're not going to just glide on they won't work. Their fuel wouldn't burn. You can't do it. So maybe they hit the deck, and they made a hole in the deck, where they messed the deck up, and it took some hours for them to get a torch and cut the damaged area out, and then put new pieces of metal in, or patch the area that was hit with welding, or whatever happened. They may have damaged a few planes. They may have caused a fire on the deck. But what's a fire on the deck really going to amount to? They've got the foam all over the place on the deck. They just spray it with foam, get it out in seconds or minutes, and that's that. If a plane is really on fire in bad way, they'll just push it off the deck with like a bulldozer type thing, or a forklift or something. Just shove it over the side in the water and ride it off. That's what they'll do. Nobody's in the plane. They'll just sink it. They're not going to let the plane burn and blow up the fuel tanks and cause a massive fire and ruin the whole ship. They'll shove the sucker overboard. So I don't know exactly what the damage was, but I think Trump is scared. He got involved out here as a new president without a lot of experience, and then he learned a little bit too late that this problem is a bigger problem than he thought it was. How the heck did the Houthis, who can't read or write, basically, they're like shepherds, and they pick corn and they plant seeds and, make bread in a factory or make sandals or sew. They're not real bright people. Okay. See, the Chinese make televisions, they make refrigerators, they make ovens, they make watches, they make cars, they make motorcycles, they make stuff. They make iPhones, they make computers, they make tablets. Do you understand that? More than America does. These are not dumb people. Okay? Why did Dior and Chanel and Gucci go there? Because they know how to make stuff. They're basically not trustworthy people. They like to take advantage of others, and they can be very dishonest. But if they put their mind to it and you force them to be honest, they'll do a good job. But they did stab, Gucci and Chanel and Dior in the back by revealing how things work with them. Now, it wasn't just purses. They're talking about this taking place with scarves and clothing and shoes and all this kind of thing, And they're trying to hurt them. And I think they did hurt them, you know. But again, people, if or if things get bad enough and China makes a Chanel purse with the exact same raw materials and puts the Chanel name and logo on it and sells it at 10% of the price, then people would buy that, but they would be banned from being imported into your country. So you'd have to fly to China, get it, then come back and hope that customs doesn't see that you bought an illegal clone and confiscate it. Okay, I'll be right back. I don't think these advanced missiles come from Iran or Russia. We don't see. You ever buy a Russian car? Would you want to fly on a Russian airline? Do you ever see Russian wristwatches, refrigerators, smartphones, computers, tablets? No. Do you see it from Iran? No, you don't. Do you see it from China? Yeah. So I think it's coming from China. And I think Trump made a mistake with smacking China with such punitive tariffs at the same time he's trying to do Iran. And he didn't realize China would be giving weapons to Iran, like it appears obviously they're doing. And now I think Trump's going to backpedal. And make a stupid deal with Iran that he'll doctor as much as he possibly can to make it look like a real deal. to save face, but I don't think he's going forward with an attack on Iran right now. He knows China's given weapons to the Houthis. The Houthis don't have underground missile cities. They don't have they're not like Iran. They're 1/10 as hard of a nut to crack. So he's going to keep bombing the Houthis, and the Chinese can keep giving them weapons, but he's going to keep disabling them and wear them down. There was about 80 people killed in the attack last night in Yemen, and he's trying to get the Yemen government to attack the Houthis also. See, if China's giving weapons to the Houthis, and now they use these weapons against the Yemen government, the real government, now China's backing a revolution, which they might be willing to do. But I don't know if they would really like doing that. That goes out of their comfort sphere. Why are they sit there? Well, now we're overthrowing the government of Yemen. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be that excited about that. We'll learn a lot today if the negotiations come back again stupid, Iran's not moving, and Trump continues to negotiate. We got to ask ourselves what Trump is doing. There's a lot of survivalist prepper type channels. They're turning against Trump now. They see that he's probably going to do a dumb deal with Iran just to save face with people that don't know any better and get out of this. So he's saying with Ukraine, if you can't put a ceasefire together quickly with Ukraine and Russia, he's out, which means he's finished with the Ukraine-Russia war. No more assistance, no more aid. And he's going to withdraw more soldiers out of Europe and more equipment. The stuff he took out of Ramstein, Germany, and brought to the Middle East will probably not go back to Ramstein, probably go someplace else or America. The chances of Trump getting a deal from Iran is like about zero, because it would involve the Iranians saying things like, oh, Trump showed us the light and we're going to stop our nuke efforts, close the facilities down, and we're going to cut back on our missiles, even though we said we would never do that. Oh, we're going to do it anyway. Come on, you think that's happening? Why is Trump hanging in there? His alibi will run, well, it cost us a couple of $1 billion to move all the equipment to the Middle East, but we saved hundreds of billions in what it would cost us to conduct a war on Iran, that kind of thing. Now, is Israel going to attack Iran? Well, none of us really know. Netanyahu probably doesn't know. If Netanyahu is afraid that ultimately he's going to wind up going to jail on his 3 criminal cases, he might figure it's better to see Israel get destroyed so he doesn't have to go to jail. I mean, you have to look at, whenever you're dealing with a politician in any country, you have to look at it this way. Is Trump using Netanyahu to set up Israel like Biden did? Then the alibi is, I told Netanyahu not to strike Israel, so now he's not to strike Iran, so now he's on his own. Could be. I'm not expecting him. If Israel does do something on Iran, it's going to be lightweight. And I'm not sure they will. Now, China's put these advanced missile systems up in Egypt. Yes, they have. They're already there. These revised, heavily modified, and improved S-400 systems. And that's why Egypt's running around with over 100,000 soldiers in the Sinai Peninsula and our southern border area. Because they're of the belief they could take down our stealth F-35s and missiles and drones and things like that. Can they? I don't know. They are enabling the Houthis to take down 20 MQ-9 Reaper drones over a period of, I don't know, 2 months. Or maybe longer, I don't know. But they're taking them down every week. They're taking one down or more. And America seems to be saying, well, it's okay. We just bring another one in. We got plenty. And they probably are correctly figuring that daily bombings in Yemen is just going to matter of time. And the Houthis will be unable to function with or without the help of China. And that's probably a reasonable assumption. But it may take another month or two. Boots on the ground in Yemen by America? Mm-mm. Don't plan on that. That's not what they're going to do. It's going to be drones, missiles, bombs. That's it. They're not going in. They go in, they'll probably lose. And the extent of the losses would be very high. Let me look at the live stream and see if I have any questions that need answering, because I do like to check. In Sydney, in Syria, what's going on? Yeah. We bombed a lot of installations in the last 3 or 4 weeks in Syria that were belonging to Bashar Assad. The weapons we already took out. And we started bombing airstrips near Turkey and military bases that didn't have any, missiles and rockets left in them. We took that out already. To make it hard for Turkey to move in. But Turkey did move into central Syria with a lot of military equipment. And we don't know exactly how bad it's going to get. In other words, Turkey threatens to destroy us all the time, but that could just be his big mouth. And right now, I don't know what is going to happen. The fear is that he'll put anti-missile systems up and control the airspace of Syria and tell us we can't. Well, tell us if we fly over there to attack Iran, he's going to take us down with missiles. And I'm not so sure he'll even do that, but at this point, we have to wait and watch. Okay? Delegation of American congressmen popped up in Damascus yesterday. Unusual. So they're going over there and poking around and trying to see what's up with that. They're very worried about persecution of the Alawites, the Druze, and the Christians. And Israel has a pretty strong force in southwestern Syria where we're occupying, and we could get air support in a minute or two, less than 2 minutes. And we also have the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, and we're not worried that much, but we are concerned about Turkey, and it's a little too soon to tell how it's going to go. There's so much news coming out now, it's really hard to keep up with it. Trump's economic ideas are sound. The problem is he's got resistance from a lot of countries. He may negotiate through all that. He might. But what he's doing to China is very different than what he's doing to other countries. Yeah, the Chinese re-engineered drones from American drones and other drones, and the anti-missile system from other anti-missile systems. These are people that can manufacture goods when they want to that are very advanced. What do you think these wars are all about? When you spend trillions on the defense, you have to try out your weapon. No, it's more than that. It's a sign of the times, the end times. But there's always been wars throughout time. There's never not been wars, really. Since Noah's flood, I haven't seen it stop, I don't think. Well, I mean, when there were only 8 people in the world, it stopped for sure, Took time for the population to grow. I'm reading the chat here. Uh, I think we're okay here. I'm not getting questions. Let's see. They want to go back to the Iran of the late. Yeah, that would be peaceful if they got it back there to the Iran of the late 70s. It would be very peaceful, but No, we're not going to go give greetings to people we don't know. We know about 2 John verses 9 to 11. How is the stitching? Well, they say they use the same expensive thread on these purses and bags, but is the workmanship the same when they're not shipping them to Louis Vuitton or Chanel? They're selling them outright. I don't know. All right, let me get back on my notes. And so we're very concerned with the Chinese weapon systems in Egypt. And I didn't pick that up from Israel News. They don't tell us that in Israel. I got it from the Arabs. That's why Netanyahu is doing nothing about Egypt, nor is Trump. Egypt's sitting there squatting, violating the Camp David Accords, knowing that if Israel's going to do anything, it's going to use their aircraft and they're going to be able to, or they think they're going to be able to shoot it down with these advanced S-400 clone type weapons that China re-engineered. To know what's really going on, you got to look at their actions, not just listen to their words, because all the world leaders are profound liars. They're all run by Satan, every country, no exception, including the one I'm in. So Trump moved the aircraft carriers out of the Asia-Pacific theater, except for the oldest aircraft carrier they have, which is going to soon be sunk or destroyed. It's too old to keep in service. That's the only one he's keeping there, which makes me again very confident that China does have good hypersonic anti-ship missiles. Again, we're taking down a stealth plane like an F-22, a B-2, F-35. Their systems have not been tested. That does not mean it will not work. It means we don't know for sure if it'll work or not. You're never really going to know until you put it out in combat. You can test it in the lab and in the field, but until you actually put it to combat, you don't know. Trump could be using Israel as a proxy, which America does, and have Israel attack Iran, even though he's saying, I told them not to attack Iran. And then Netanyahu puts a sullen face on, they go through the motions of this playhouse game, right? Like a soap opera, but he might, and then Iran counterattacks Israel. And they say, well, the big Satan and the little Satan. Israel's the little Satan, America's the big Satan. Then they start hitting American bases in the region, and then Trump says, aha, now I can attack Iran. I don't have to worry about Congress. I don't have to worry about them impeaching me. I don't have to worry, boom, 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 and then the show starts. That could be the case. Netanyahu is dumb enough to do things like that. He doesn't worry that much about the country of Israel. He worries a lot more about Netanyahu. Okay. But I can tell you that something's really wrong with the way Trump is hanging in there with these negotiations with Iran. Maybe it's simply put that Trump wants to show squeaky clean. I gave Iran all the chances that I could give them. I gave them every opportunity. They won't stop. They're a threat to America. They're a threat to many nations in the world. We got to take it out. And that could be simply all it is. But no, I think there's a lot more to it. It could be just that, but I think China's meddling and Russia's meddling. And that's why they keep their warships out of range of the Houthi missiles. They're worried about it. They're worried about it. A missile came in again yesterday to Israel, and we found shrapnel inside Israel. So they're telling us they're taking these planes down outside of Israel, our own government, and yet on numerous occasions we're finding the shrapnel inside Israel. So what's up with that? That's very atypical for the Israeli government, but now we're seeing it, and I don't understand why. Maybe it'll stop, but the last missile they took down, they just said they took it down. They didn't say specifically that they took it down outside of Israel. That didn't happen. Those of you that have been contacting me over the years on Skype, and that Skype phone number I have, it's stopping. I mean, Skype's going out of business. So if you want to have contact with me, get a hold of me, and if I know who you are. If I don't know who you are, I'm not going to answer you. But if I know who you are, I'll give you my WhatsApp information, okay? Which is free. All you got to do with WhatsApp is be on the internet. It's a pretty good system. It doesn't have a translate feature. So that's something I don't like. Skype has another system. I don't know. Maybe I'll switch into it. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I forgot what they call it. It's something more for business meetings, but you can keep your phone number. I might do that. I don't know yet. So a lot of people have that number. So maybe I'll do that. I don't know. How many months would I have to keep it running? We're right at the end here. How much more time can go by? You know, we're coming into late April now. You know. Things will happen suddenly when the end gets better. Okay, let me go through more of my notes here because I picked up a lot of stuff today. First of all, we got a couple of prayer requests, not a lot, a few. For AE, Alpha Echo, AE, Alpha Echo, general healing and healing from seizures. For AE, Alpha Echo, general healing and healing from seizures. Okay. Next one, I'm just going to have one letter for this person. P as in Peter. P as in Peter. Pray for the car to get fixed properly at a fair price and quickly. Quickly is very important. The car's been sitting there for some weeks. So for the initial P, as in Peter, pray for the car to get fixed properly at a fair price and quickly. I'll take these off later. Okay. See, China making the purses and the bags and clothes and lots of things like running shoes for Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Dior, Gucci, Adidas, Nike. You know, it shows you that they do have good manufacturing. So don't be so quick to think they don't have some weapons that are better than American and European weapons. Don't fall into that trap. Okay? It's very possible and even likely. Israel attacked the nuclear facilities, so to speak, some months back in Iran. They just took the radar out by the facilities to scare the Iranians. And Netanyahu may do something like that. Will Netanyahu go out there and blow up the oil piers and the ports and cut their economy off? If he had a brain, he would do that. But I don't think he will. So the meeting today is in Rome, Italy. I'm really interested to see how that goes. Now, Hezbollah, remember I keep telling you, in these days, don't expect ceasefires or peace deals. They're never happening. They don't happen in these days, right? So Hezbollah in Lebanon said they'll never let anyone disarm them or take their weapons away. So this business of the Lebanese regular government getting all the weapons away from Hezbollah and disbanding them, Hezbollah is saying it's never going to happen. Hezbollah will kill the wives, children, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers of the Lebanese army if they try doing it. But they don't even have to go that far. They'll just make war on the Lebanese army. They're guerrilla fighters. The Lebanese army are, they haven't fought a war in about 20 years. They're cowardly. They're meek. They're not crackerjack troops or anything like that. I don't expect much of anything from them. I don't think they're going to do what they say they're going to do. So we could assume Yemen, Egypt, Iran, and maybe on Iraq have good Chinese weapons. Iran, Yemen, and Egypt, I would say for sure. And that's scaring Trump. I'm not getting progress reports on the other two aircraft carriers that are supposed to be heading over here. They should be here in the next week or so if they're ever going to come. Maybe he changed his mind on that too. Aircraft carriers are very useful to America because they could set up a few hundred miles away from a country out of their missile range. And with their escort vessels and submarines, they can protect against enemy warships and, aircraft and this type of thing. And then they can launch their planes and bomb the smithereens out of targets in a country that they get near to. So it's a useful weapon for them, but it seems to be getting out of date. I think you have to, I think America, it's useful, but in this day, it's also very vulnerable. It's a big, massive thing floating around in the water that you can hit. And, I think a lot of other countries, not all, because there's probably about 10 or 12 countries, maybe that many, I don't know, with aircraft carriers, but maybe it's 8 or 9, but they're very vulnerable today from drones, from missiles, from all sorts of stuff. If Trump enters into a Mickey Mouse, flimsy, lousy nuclear deal with Iran, his popularity with the survivalist gun people, preppers, is going to go down like a rock because they like Israel. So Netanyahu is going to make a speech tonight after Shabbat, I believe. And I think he's going to talk about Iran. And he's going to talk about Gaza. I don't think he's going to talk about much else. A lot about Gaza. If we start hearing about, flight trackers showing a lot of cargo planes leaving Saudi Arabia, then it would be a safe assumption that the Saudis went over to Iran whole hog. But I haven't heard any of that right now, so I don't think so. So the Saudis could just be playing along with Iran and they don't mean it. I don't know yet. So what we got to worry about, or Trump has to worry about, is China putting warships here, more drones in the Middle East to help Iran and fly in missiles for Iran. So Iran gets into a war with America and they're using Chinese state-of-the-art missiles and drones. And the American warships will go to Davy Jones's locker, is what I'm afraid would happen. And that would be a big plus for China because they got less any aircraft carriers to worry about. So if another two wind up coming into the region and we have four here and they could all be taken down, it would be a great comfort to Russia and China and North Korea and Iran. Trump knows that. What do you think Trump's popularity would be like if an aircraft carrier blew up and sank? 5,000 souls, billions and billions of dollars of equipment. The Democrats would immediately file for impeachment. It wouldn't get anywhere, but they would try it. If China is using warships, or most likely that drone I told you about to help the Houthis, would Israel take it down? No. Netanyahu wouldn't do that. Why don't the Chinese tell the Houthis, you can use our technology and our missiles, but just add American warships? Because they're Satanists too, and they don't like Israel. What do you think Satan wants to do to stop end times and stay out of the pit? Destroy Israel. That's what Zechariah 12 is about. He wants to get rid of Israel. America is with the whore. The beast is against America. He eats her and burns her flesh. Wants to get rid of America. Because Satan and the beast are pretty close. Satan gives the beast his power and his seat. The beast wants to get rid of America. America likes the fake churches and the fake Israel. The fake churches and the fake religions, Churchianity, Catholicism, Hinduism, Buddhism, atheism, they don't do any good for Satan because they don't want to get up and go fight. But Mohammedanism, yeah, they get up and go kill. That's who Satan wants, a murderer and a father of lies. He wants them. They do something for him. The other religions don't do anything for him. You understand that? So that's why the beast wants to get rid of America. No, I think Biden was with the beast, but things shifted. Trump's with the whore, so he likes Israel. You know, there's rumors flying around now that Biden pulled out of Afghanistan rapidly and left massive amounts of weapons behind, and they wound up in the hands of terrorist groups around the world, the Houthis being one of them. How about them apples? So was Biden really against America? I think so, just like Obama. The open borders, that's to destroy America with the sleeper agents. I never heard sleeper agents come out of Trump's mouth since he took office. He used to talk about it all the time. He's worried about them. He's scared. At the end of 4 years, he still won't have them out. Biden did a lot of deep-seated damage, believe me. I don't think Russia and Ukraine are going to reach any kind of realistic ceasefire or peace deal. I don't think it's going to happen because we're not seeing any ceasefires or peace deals come to pass. So what will happen? They'll keep fighting initially, you know. Trump will probably pull out of NATO and pull back a lot from Europe and alienate NATO a lot more. Now, remember, China's been pushing America very long with Taiwan, provoking them, surrounding them with warships a few times a month and aircraft violating their airspace, making them think they're under siege, putting NOTAMs out, which is basically a blockade. And Trump's done nothing. So Trump showed China weakness. And now China's moving in the Middle East because they see Trump's got weakness. Now, Trump flexed his muscles with Yemen, but did he really? Yemen is a nothing target. They can't do anything. Okay? Iran's not such a flimsy target. Neither is China or Russia. So let's see how far. You see, the Iranians and now China and Russia, too, with Ukraine, are pushing against Trump very hard. And Trump ain't coming back swinging. So he's getting a quick reputation as being a big mouth and afraid to take out his war club and swing. And how does Trump break out of that? The only way is to go after Iran or China or Russia. But going after Yemen is not convincing Russia, China, and Iran about how tough he is. Yemen's not that much of a military, let alone the Houthis. We know there's S-400 type weapon systems in Iran, but now I'm beginning to think they're the Chinese kind, which are way, way more potent than the Russian kind. So this is another problem that Trump's got. Trump's got a lot of problems in the Middle East right now. The Chinese version of the S-400 is microwave enabled, which is a technology they're the only ones that use. Nobody else does. And it's thought that these missiles they fire at planes are stealthy and the planes won't see the missile coming in until it blows the plane up. But this is not yet tested. It's not tested against F-35s or F-15s or F-16s or F-18s or F-22s or B-1s or B-2s. We got to see how it actually works in combat, because nobody really knows till you actually get in combat. Because you don't know what the other side really has and what their capabilities are until you're actually in combat. They say it can acquire 100 targets, this new S-400 Chinese system, and it can fire at about 10 of them pretty much at the same time. New Zealand had a 5.9 earthquake. I'm telling you, substantial earthquakes are on the rise. That's a birth pang probably everybody knows about. Columns of smoke, volcanoes, they're on the rise. So you got to start paying attention to these things. There's a very high amount, or just about every day we see one or two substantial earthquakes. We're not seeing 8.9s, 9.3s. We're not even seeing 7.9. I don't think we are. Not that high, but they're substantial. And when you're dealing with poor countries, they don't have seismic standards and stuff like that, and they go down. They have damage, death, collapsing buildings, bridges, all kinds of stuff falls apart. So things are starting to look doomy and gloomy for Israel. Okay? And this is the way it's supposed to look. It's supposed to scare Israel. 2 Corinthians, let me check the right verse for you. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. This is important that you know. Well, it's going back to verse 8. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, 3 times, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Now that means when the person is weak in the flesh, not in the spirit, when the person is weak in the flesh, that's when God's strength is made perfect. So Paul had bad eyes and stuff, right? Okay. Made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in weaknesses, things wrong with the body and stuff like that, not having a lot of money, in reproaches, in necessities, persecutions, and distress for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. And now I'm going to be back in a second. I'm going to show you how this applies to the nation of Israel and how God's going to do this with Israel, with the two witnesses. My friend, take it easy. Come on in. Take a load off, get some water, and take a nap. Don't do much barking. I pulled Bueller in. She was going crazy with the barking out there. Okay. Zechariah 12 is the next great war type event on Israel that leads us into redemption, and it's already in place. It involves a siege. I'll read. A siege is not a blockade per se. It is a surrounding, and you attack from surrounding. So that's what Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon is doing. That's what we had in the east with Syria. And we have that in the south with Hamas. And we have Egypt in our south. We have Yemen in our south. We have Iraq in our kind of northeast. We have Turkey moving into Syria. And Turkey's north of us. And we got Iran. The siege is missing Saudi Arabia, who's now negotiating with Iran, and Jordan, which will probably be overthrown. Zechariah 12:1. The burden of the word of Jehovah for Israel, saith Jehovah, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling. You tremble when you're scared. Unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege. And look that up in Webster's if you need more help with that. Both against Judah and against Jerusalem. That's who's here now. God's not yet calling us Israel. We don't have all the land yet, and the 10 tribes are not here. He refers to us as Judah and Jerusalem. And in that day, that would be the day of vengeance, will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people, all that burden themselves with it, shall be cut in pieces, though all the people, all the heathen of the land or the earth shall be gathered together against it. You see, God places another temple in Israel. Now, the church isn't aware of this, but the Orthodox Jews are. And that's one of the biggest reasons why they've never built a temple. They know God places it there. Where does it say that? It does in Ezekiel 37, the last 3 verses I will read. Ezekiel 37, verse 26. Moreover, I will make a covenant of shalom or peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them. Now, this will happen at the end of the day of vengeance, when Yeshua, seated on the right hand of God the Father, appears in the clouds. And 1 John 3:2, when they see him that believe, they will be like him. And you see that in Zechariah 12:10. And they change. They get everlasting life. You see that in Malachi 4. They jump out of the stall like a calf, like a baby calf, become young again. A child shall die at 100. You don't have immortality. A child shall die at 100. My people's days shall be like that of a tree. These are all scriptures. Even when children run, they get tired, but you won't get tired. When you see him, you shall be like him. You shall be like the risen Christ. Church doesn't teach this, but your Bible does. And I will place them and multiply them, and will set, in the same word as set or play, it means place or set, the words in the tongue, my sanctuary, my temple, in the midst of them forevermore. The midst of Israel is Jerusalem. He places it here. Now, that also is going to involve Mount Zion being replaced. Was dismantled by soldiers hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It'll come back. And that should be the end of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Ash Mosque. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Well, in 2 Maccabees 2, chapter 2, we read that Jeremiah hid it in Mount Nebo, which is where Moses saw the promised land and died, and a cave, and sealed the cave up. And what was in there was the altar of incense, the Ark of the Covenant, and the actual tabernacle. Jeremiah said he sealed it up until God shows mercy to Israel, which if you read Zechariah 1 and 2, you pick that up there. My sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. So this temple is not going away. Okay? It's not they got crazy teachings in the church, They keep pointing it to Gog and Magog because it's not going to happen in these days. It's about 70 years away. And they point you to that now because they want to dismantle your faith. And then when it doesn't happen, you go into despair and you lose your faith and that kind of thing. And my tabernacle also shall be with them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And that takes you to Jeremiah 31. They shall all know me from the least to the greatest. They'll not go around saying, know the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts, put it in their heart, give them a heart of flesh. All these scriptures. And the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. Why would the heathen think that if a bunch of rabbis got a bunch of construction equipment and slapped together a temple? They wouldn't. But if the temple came down from heaven, that would be different. It wouldn't look like it came from earth. It's just a house not made with human hands, you probably read about. I got a good scripture here. I got to look it up for a second. Not a long time. Zechariah 6, verse 12. And speak unto him, saying, Thus speaketh Jehovah of armies, saying, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, isn't that Yeshua? Sure. And he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Jehovah. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne. And the counsel of shalom, or peace, does say shalom, doesn't it? Yes. Shall be between them both. Now that's the glory God of Israel and Yeshua. They both sit enthroned in New Jerusalem. But he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Now the church is going to tell you that the temple of the Lord is the believers. Well, what the Bible teaches you is you're the temple of the Holy Spirit. It doesn't teach you take the place of the temple. Okay? That's very contrary to Scripture. Now, if we go to Ezekiel 43, we read, well, I guess we're going to get into a big Bible study. We go to Malachi 3. We read, Behold, I will send my Malach, my messenger, shall prepare the way before me. This is Elijah, one of the two witnesses. And Jehovah, whom you seek, it doesn't say Jehovah, it says Adonai, the Lord in a soft form, whom you seek shall suddenly come to his temple. Even the messenger of the covenant, that's back to Elijah, whom you delight in, behold, he shall come, saith Jehovah of hosts. So, he comes suddenly to his temple. Now, they'll teach you it's Yeshua going to Herod's temple, nonsense like that. Okay. They'll say, oh, it's John the Baptist, and it's Yeshua, But what does it say in the next verse? But who may abide the day of his coming, and who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like a fuller's soap, and he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and shall purify the sons of Levi, the Levites, and purge them as gold and silver, and they shall, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto the Lord, as in the days of old, as in the former years. You think that happened when John the Baptist and Yeshua were in Jerusalem? Of course not. You have to be super Bible ignorant to believe that. And let's keep reading. And I will come near to you. If that was true, why would God have destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD? Duh. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, against the adulterers, against the false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling of his wages, and the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger and his right, and fear from his right, and fear not me, saith Jehovah of hosts. For I am Jehovah, I change not. Therefore, you son. Okay, well, this never happened when Yeshua was on earth. Okay? Don't let them fool you. They're not your friends. Okay. So now we'll go into it, comes suddenly to his temple. Okay. Now we'll go to Ezekiel 43, which shows us the glory of God of Israel going into the next temple. Never taught in the churches. You can't spiritualize this. You just trip over your own shoelaces if you try it. Ezekiel 43:1. Afterward, he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh towards the east, eastern gate, and behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east. Now, the church doesn't even know who this is. And that's one of the other reasons the rabbis think the church is silly. I do too. But they understand the next temple comes down from heaven. They know who the glory of God of Israel is. He was with Moses and Aaron and the children of Israel in the wilderness. God in Exodus 23, verse 20, put his name Jehovah in this angel. And he's the one that resides in the temple. That's why they refer to the temple as a house in places in the Bible. Bait means house, B-A-I-T, maybe you'd say something like that. Bait. It's a house because he lives there. He didn't live in any of the previous temples. He went into Solomon's temple briefly to anoint it with the glory cloud, but he didn't stay there. He never went into temple number 2, Zerubbabel's temple, clearly in the Bible. First was Solomon's temple. Next one was Zerubbabel's temple, clearly in the Bible. Then the third temple was Herod's temple. And Yeshua, when he chased the money changers out, he said, my Father's house shall be a house of prayer. And they made merchandise out of it. So Yeshua was convinced it was the third temple. The churches teach the next temple will be the third temple. Check it out. There's already been 3 temples. What kind of schmucks are we dealing with? But they fool the people because the people don't believe their Bibles. They don't even read their Old Testament. When Yeshua and the apostles were preaching, there was no New Testament. They had letters to the churches, sure, but they were preaching only out of the Old Testament. And now they ignore the Old Testament, don't they? And behold, the glory of God of Israel came from the way of the east, and his voice is like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. Arise, shine, your light has come, the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. That's Isaiah 60, verse 1. It's right here. And it was according to the appearance of the vision which I saw, even according to the vision that I saw when I came to destroy the city. God does nothing unless he first reveals it from the prophets. So he prophesied of the destruction of Jerusalem. That's what he's talking about. This is still in the Babylonian captivity when this vision came. And the vision were like the vision that I saw by the river Kabar that's in Babylon. And I fell upon my face. And the glory of the Lord came into the house by the way of the gate whose prospect is towards the east. Now, I always tell you, I think the church is going to call the 2 witnesses, Apostle John and Elijah, the beast and the false prophet. And the glory of God of Israel in the temple to them would probably be Satan. And you'll hate me for this. But when it happens, you'll remember I said it to you, and then you might save your soul. So if you want to hate me today, go ahead. But it might save your soul when you see these things happen. I'm not sure it will. There's nothing in Scripture that says that specifically, but it could happen. It's a theory I have, not based on Scriptures directly. Now I'm in verse 5 of Ezekiel 43. So the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of Jehovah filled the house. And I heard him speaking unto me out of the house, and the man stood by me. And he said unto me, Son of man, the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell, that's why it's called the house, I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel. The middle is Jerusalem, forever. And my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile, neither they nor their kings by their whoredom, nor by the carcasses of their kings in their high places. They're no longer destroyed because they've seen the Lord poured his spirit out there on the Israelites and the house of David, the people in Jerusalem and David, the tribe of David, and all the Israelites, I assume, around the world, the lost tribes and so forth. This is their 70-year testing. Daniel 9:24 does not say 70 weeks. Every single Hebrew Bible going back to 900 AD, without any exceptions, says 70. The first 70 could be the Babylonian captivity, and it could also be when Yeshua was born, and then the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. If you look up in Google, the church people are going to tell you Yeshua was born in the year 4 to 6 BC. BC means before Christ. So they're telling the people that Yeshua was born before Yeshua. In other words, you got to be an idiot to believe them. That's the simplified version. You got to be a moron to believe them. Other people say he was born AD, some years AD. Well, AD means after death. So now the other idiots are telling us that Yeshua was born after he died. Now, when they do, you see, God doesn't have calendars like the Gregorian, which comes from Pope Gregory. And that calendar didn't exist when your New Testament or your Old Testament was written. It was non-existent for many, many centuries. So we're right now probably... Sorry, this idiot thing posted a message that I should update my operating system, and it shut the broadcast, this stupid thing. Okay, so I don't know what you didn't mean, but I'm in, let's say, Ezekiel 43, verse 8. In their setting of their threshold by my threshold, and their post by my post, and the wall between me and them, they have even defiled my holy name by their abominations that they have committed. Wherefore I have consumed them in my anger. Now let them put away their whoredom and the carcasses of their kings far from me, and I will dwell in the midst of them forever. Thou, son of man, dwell in the midst of them forever. He doesn't leave. What he does do is he goes into New Jerusalem when it comes. Thou, son of man, read Revelation 21:22. It'll be rather apparent to you that Yeshua and the glory God of Israel are both sitting there enthroned. Thou, son of man, show the house to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their lawlessness, and let them measure the pattern thereof. See, he doesn't tell us how to build this temple, like Moses was told how to build the tabernacle. We don't get that. We get the rough layout of the temple and the law of the temple. I'll keep reading. And if they be ashamed of all that they have done, show them the form of the house and the fashion thereof, and the going out thereof and the coming in thereof. In other words, how you go in and out. Therefore, and all the form thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and all the forms thereof, the laws thereof, and the word for laws is Torah. So this is another example of Moses' law being changed, is it not? And write it in their sight, that they may keep the whole form thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and do them. This is the law of the house, the Torah bite, law of the house, upon the top of the mountain. I told you the mountain's coming back too, courtesy of Jehovah. The whole limit thereof and about shall be most holy. Behold, this is the law of the house. He keeps telling us this, and we're going to learn how to obey, how to operate going in and out of this temple and what goes on. It's called the house because the glory of God of Israel stays there. And these are the measures of the altar. Now, you see, we're told how to build the altar, because that's not part of the temple. It's a brazen altar, and it's outside the temple in the inner courtyard. Eastern entrance to the temple. If you were standing on the steps to the temple, the altar would probably, let's say the temple steps are 12 o'clock position. The altar is probably going to be about 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock position from the steps, if that helps you. And these are the measures of the altar. That's what I think, anyway, of the altar after the cubits. A cubit is basically like from here to here. It's going to vary on a different person. A basketball player is going to be a lot different than somebody 5'4", but you know. And these are the measures of the altar after the cubits. The cubit is a cubit and a handbreadth. Even the bottom shall be a cubit, and the breadth a cubit, and the border thereof by the edge thereof round about shall be a span. And this, now I think that's a cubit, maybe I'm wrong, shall be the place of the altar, and from the bottom upon the ground even to the tower shall be 2 cubits, and the breadth. You see, he's giving us exact. When we hear him talk about a door to the temple and things like that, if you read Ezekiel 40 to 48, you'll learn a lot more about this temple. Okay? If you read Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11, you're going to learn a lot more about the abomination of desolation and Gog and Magog. They never teach you that this is Gog and Magog, but it is. And so is Zechariah 14. It's up to you if you want to learn. Okay, so now the other thing I want to teach you about this temple is found in Ezekiel 45, the anointed prince, which you read about in Daniel 9:24, where he gets cut off, but not for his own part. That's not Yeshua. Okay, they built the city to the anointed prince. It's the next, in the next temple. There's an anointed prince from the line of David. David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne. So we're in Ezekiel 45. And it talks about the land, the sanctuary, the temple, but we'll get down to, it's going to show us this anointed prince doing offerings in the temple near the glory of God of Israel in the temple. And this is something that never happened in the past. I still got to finish Zechariah 12 with you, but I'll do that in a minute. I'm looking for the scripture. I don't know the verse. I know it's in Ezekiel 45. There's something really unusual here. In Ezekiel 45:21, in the first month, in the 14th day of the month, you shall have the Pesach, the Passover, a feast of 7 days. Unleavened bread shall be eaten. And upon that day, well, that's curious because it doesn't say that the Passover Seder is the first day and then you have 7 days of unleavened. It's actually teaching it to us the way the rabbis in Israel do it today. I guess they got it from this. I don't think it's correct right now, but it says the Passover, a feast of 7 days of unleavened bread. That's how the rabbis do it now. Very interesting. Huh. None of us can correctly observe the Passover because we don't have an active priesthood or a temple or an altar or sacrifices or anything. You can do unleavened bread and things like that. But okay, verse 22, and upon that day shall the prince, now that word is, I believe, Nagid, no, Nasa. You could say it's a prince, Nasa, prepare for himself, for all the people of the land, a bullock for a sin offering. And 7 days of the feast he shall prepare a burnt offering to Jehovah, 7 bullocks and 7 rams, although without blemish, the 7 days, and a kid of the goats daily for a sin offering. And he shall prepare a meat offering of an ephah for a bullock, and an ephah for a ram, and a hin for of oil for an ephah. So you see, he's doing offerings and sacrifices in the temple. Okay? And that's the anointed prince. It's not Yeshua. Yeshua is the king of Israel. He's a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. He's the Messiah. He's the Son of God. He's not the anointed prince. Okay? That's more crap they're teaching to create confusion. So back to Zechariah 12. So we know there's a siege all around Israel. And we know now that in verse 3, in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. See, when the temple's there and Elijah's teaching the Levites to make this offerings acceptable unto the Lord, which will mean the blessings of the law come on Israel, which you'll see shortly in another couple of verses, the the nations are really going to lay siege to us because they're going to try to get rid of us. The Muslims believe that Israel will have a false Messiah that will tell them to kill all the Muslims. Okay? So they're going to try to work up enough guts to attack Elijah, who, rest assured, is going to be doing a lot of signs and wonders. And did the glory God of Israel come into the temple yet or not? Probably not yet, but maybe. I don't know for sure. Okay, so we'll go back to Zechariah 12. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. That's old speak, Roman era, for get killed. You get cut in pieces by a sword, you're quite dead. Nobody's going to come along and crazy glue you back together. Though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. In that day, saith Jehovah, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah. Now, the 10 tribes aren't here, just Judah. So it's like a now thing. So that when he opens his eyes, that means he turns his face towards you. That means you just slid into home place. You slid into the home base. It's a good thing. And a real super good thing. And will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors, you should read this as judges, and the judges of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength. It doesn't really say that. It's saying the strength of the inhabitants of Jerusalem is in the Lord, their God. It's in Jehovah of hosts, their God. That's what it's really saying. They didn't translate it right. In that day will I make the judges of Judah like an earth of fire. Getting the 2 witnesses yet? Fire out of their mouth. In that day, that's the day of vengeance, will I make the governors of Judah, I think it is, the governors of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. He says it twice because there's 2 witnesses, Apostle John and Elijah. And like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour, it's better translated burn up, and they shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall, what it really says, remain still inhabited in her own place, even in Jerusalem. Nothing happens at Jerusalem. So it's not Gog and Magog. Now, this is the Jacob's trouble. Great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. You see them getting saved out of it. Gog and Magog is somewhat different. Okay. So there could be millions of people surrounding Judah and Jerusalem. It's probably a massive number, and the 2 witnesses burn them up. So this is more dramatic than Pharaoh, the big kahuna, following the Israelites to the Red Sea, and then the Red Sea stays open, and the jerk says, oh, I'll go kill them now, and goes in the Red Sea. And when his army gets in the Red Sea, it collapses on all of them and drowns them to death. And the Israelites escape. But this is a much bigger, more wild thing. But it says that God says he's going to run Israel in Isaiah 1 like he did at the first with the judges, which was Moses and Aaron. So they did the Red Sea stunt, courtesy of their heavenly Father, Jehovah, and that was a mighty deed. Scripture also said that we're not going to be talking of Moses' deliverance anymore because this next Exodus is going to be so great. But you're just seeing one piece of this here. So the 2 witnesses burn up perhaps millions and millions of people. Now, when it says fire coming out of their mouth, I just want to caution you, we're not going to know for sure till we see what's actually coming out, but it could be a lightning as well, which makes fire. Lightning hits the woods, then you have a forest fire. Lightning makes fire. Or it could be fire. But you can imagine what kind of fire two guys are going to emit from their mouth that are going to burn up millions of people. See, you don't have to cleanse the land after you burn them up because they're just ashes, and the ashes don't defile the land. If they were bones and skin and cadavers, yeah, it would defile the land, but not ashes. They just blow away. They shall be ashes under your feet, Malachi 4. The bad ones in Israel, the 2/3 that get cut off, get burned up too, I believe at the same time. This is foreign to the church, yet there it is in your Bible. Man that trusteth in man shall be cursed. You're going to trust your Bible, or you want to trust the guy with the big building? And then we go on and we see in verse 10, well, we see something else. Verse 7, then the Lord shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. So you guys might be in the inhabitants of Jerusalem because you have the true gospel. In that day shall Jehovah, I said might, but it's looking good, but we'll see. In that day shall Jehovah defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. So the old feeble people, 70, 80 years old, whatever, canes, walkers, wheelchairs, stumbling, bad hearing, bad eyes, bad bones, they're like David, who killed Goliath and killed the bear and killed the lion and was like a great warrior. Obviously, something changed. And then it says, and the house of David shall be as Elohim, as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. That was the glory of God of Israel that went with Moses, Aaron, and the children of Israel in the wilderness, and he killed 140,000 in one day. Obviously, this is something changing. They never taught you this, did they? But here it is, right in your Bible, verse 9. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the heathen nations that come against Jerusalem. Seems that it's quite a few. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. So now they're believers, the house of David and the people in Jerusalem, right? But if it's you guys that were in Jerusalem, why would he need to pour his spirit out on you? See, it's very difficult to work all this out. And of supplications. And now what happens? And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. Well, who did they stick a spear in his side and water and blood came out? Which a lot of people say was the beginning of the church, the water, the Holy Spirit, and the blood, the communion. It's a good theory. I don't know if it's true. It sounds good, though. Whom they have pierced, and they shall, so they see him, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. No, they're all mourning for him, which never happened when they killed him 2,000 or so years ago. And it's clearly Yeshua. And what does John 6:40 tell us? This, of course, the church never teaches you. I do this over and over so you guys learn how to teach it and you get it down cold. John 6:40. And this is the will of him that sent me. Also, there's new people coming in that need to hear it. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him. So that's why the Lord poured his Holy Spirit out on those in Jerusalem and the house of David. So now they're believers. Okay? And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. And that's when you have everlasting life, which could happen this week. And Revelation 1:7 says, every eye shall see him, even those that mourn him. It's right out of Zechariah 12. I'll read it to you. Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and also, and they which pierced him, right out of Zechariah 12, and all kindreds, all tribes of the land shall wail or mourn. Wailing is a form of mourning in the Middle East, because of him. Even so, amen. That's your Zechariah 12 in Revelation 1:7. And of course, you want to read Matthew 24, verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Now he appears in heaven. This is not the return to earth. This is the appearing. And then shall all the tribes of the land mourn. That's your Zechariah 12. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Now, that's not the return to earth, although they'll teach you that. This is the beginning of the 70 years, the second 70 of Daniel. The sign for that will be the moon goes to blood and the sun goes dark, just before he returns to earth at the end of the tribulation, Gog and Magog. The moon goes dark and the sun goes dark, and the stars don't give their light and fall for heaven. That's when Yeshua is going to appear on the horse with the double-edged sword coming out of his mouth in Revelation 19, with all the armies of heaven on their horses, millions of them. And his garment is stained red, and then he comes down, and the beast and the false prophet get thrown in the lake of fire. Satan goes to the pit and all that stuff, okay? Then you begin the millennium, and New Jerusalem comes down and all of that, all right? Let me check the live stream. Yeah, the stream glitched. They're trying to force me to update the operating system, and I don't like it, but I might have to just shut the stupid thing just shut the stupid thing. Yeshua comes down from heaven at a latter date, yes. Wasn't the apostles illiterate? No. Luke was a physician, for instance. No. No, I'm not seeing any questions or prayer requests or anything here. Yeah, I'm going to probably update the operating system to shut that stupid thing up. I don't like doing it, but I will. I got fears that if I do it, I'm going to get problems, but I think I got to do it. Every day it pulls this move on me. And if I don't have my eyes constantly on the screen, I miss it for a few seconds. So that gives you a good look at where we're going. So we're going into Jacob's trouble. Great is Jacob's trouble, but he will be saved out of it. And that's where we're headed. And it's already in place, the siege. We're not headed to Gog and Magog. Israel is not living in peace and safety without bars and walls, with cattle and gold and silver. That's nonsense. Okay? And that's where we're at. So I hope you got something out of this. And things are moving very fast. And America will turn against Israel. It says they shall do evil in your sight. I believe that happens here in the land. And things are getting weird. Trump is over his head. Remember, he backpedaled on the sanctions. He's not really enforcing them now, but he is putting sanctions on various product lines, not countries. You know, he's changing and flip-flopping. He's doing that with attacking Iran. You know, he's confused. He tried to bite off too much at the same time. He should have walked slowly and more deliberately and just did one or two big things at a time, not trying to do everything at once, get rid of the illegals and set up tariffs and fix the Federal Reserve and fix the taxes. And he has this guy fixing the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and he's got people fixing Social Security, fixing unemployment. You know, he's fighting with the courts. He's trying to fix Ukraine and Russia. He's trying to fix things with China and fair trade, and he's trying to calm Iran down and help Israel. You know, I mean, guys trying everything at the same time. I think he bit off more than he could chew. And there's a lot of people now that were supporting him before the election that are relatively underimpressed with him. Yeah. And they're stating so plainly. Okay, so my email address is israelgiving with the number 7 at gmail.com. It's in the lowest line down in the description box. I also have offering information there, and it's also in the chat. And I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, and joy. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for the peace of Yerushalayim and pray for better videos. It could always improve. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I am out. Thank you.